Hi, it's Patrick Hutzel from Intensive Care Hotline with another weekly update. This week I want to show you how to quickly take control and have real power and influence if your loved one is critically ill in intensive care. In last week's blog I gave you 3 quick steps on how to position and prepare yourself well mentally whilst your loved one is critically ill in intensive care. If you haven't read or seen it, you can read it here by clicking this link below. In this week's update, I want to share the secret on how you can quickly take control, have real power and influence if your loved one is critically ill in intensive care. The reality in intensive care is often that when shit hits the fan, meaning your loved one has just been admitted to intensive care, you feel like you are losing control, you feel powerless, stressed and vulnerable, least of all influential. Again, other people are running the show and you might feel like you've just been abandoned. Everybody in intensive care appears to be busy and is attending to your loved one's needs. After a few hours, one of the doctors or one of the nurses might take the time to give you an update of what is exactly happening with your critically ill loved one, why he or she needed to come to intensive care, and what the diagnosis and the prognosis is like. Again, you feel like you're the 5th wheel on the wagon and you have so many questions going through your head. Did the doctor really say that my dad had a heart attack? No, the nurse didn't say that mom had 5 minutes without oxygen to her brain, did she? It's hard for you to comprehend all the things that have been said by the intensive care team, and it felt like a matter-of-fact statement rather than in a compassionate and empathetic way. It almost felt like, this is what's happened and this is what we're going to do about it and we'll see. Do you have any questions for us? You feel like you've been brushed off and you feel like even if you had a question that they didn't want to give you an answer anyway. You feel helpless, stressed and vulnerable and you have no idea what the doctors and the nurses are talking about, and you feel like they have all the power in their hands and you feel helpless and upset. It would be great to talk to someone who would actually take the time to really explain the things that are happening with your mum or dad to you. It doesn't have to be that way. Look, I know how you feel and I know how devastating and frightening the experience can be for you and for your family after your loved one has been admitted to intensive care. The number one thing you need to know, and more importantly, the number one thing you need to do now, is not to be afraid of anything that's coming your way, irrespective of what you've just been told. And what I mean as well is that you mustn't be intimidated by the doctors and the nurses in intensive care. It's a massive mistake, and I see families of critically ill people in intensive care making it all the time. They are, more often than not, intimidated by the people working in intensive care, and they therefore suck up to the doctors and the nurses and they put them on a pedestal. This is such a big mistake, and by doing that you are losing all your power, influence and control. You are basically handing over your power on a platter if you keep sucking up to the doctors and the nurses in intensive care. Stop doing that and treat the doctors and the nurses as equals. The minute you stop sucking up to them, you get your bargaining power back and you have control, power and influence. I do believe that you might be doing it unconsciously and you may not necessarily do it on purpose, but people suck up to health professionals all the time and they put them on a pedestal. Make a conscious choice and treat them as equals from now on. Ask all the questions you want to know and never take no for an answer. Also, don't let their apparent lack of time be in your way. They can spend more time with you than they would like to admit if they really want to. The minute you stop sucking up to the doctors and the nurses in intensive care, and the minute you treat them as equals, that's when things change for you in an instant. That's when you gain back control, power and influence, because the doctors and the nurses generally are not used to people questioning them and their special skills. But it doesn't mean that they are without fault. Try it out. Make a conscious choice to stop sucking up to the doctors and the nurses and treat them as equals. After you have made that conscious choice, I bet your bargaining power, your level of control, and your level of influence will increase 10 times just by you making a conscious choice and just by you acting and behaving differently. It's a massive shift in mindset, and it actually gets you results. More importantly, it gets you the results that you want, and it makes you feel in control, powerful and influential. And that's an important feeling to have in such a challenging situation that you, your family and your critically ill loved one are in. If you want to learn more secrets about how you can be influential, have real power and control while your loved one is critically ill in intensive care, sign up for your free membership now and get your free instant impact report, where you will discover how to take control and charge of your and your critically ill loved one's situation without being reliant on the doctors and the nurses. You will know exactly what questions to ask, and you'll also discover how you need to manage yourself and others so that you can have real power and so that you can influence decision making. With your free instant impact report, you'll also get 4 other free reports, and the reports you will be receiving are the 6 questions you need to ask the most senior doctor in intensive care, 10 things you didn't know doctors and nurses are talking about while you're not at the bedside with your loved one, the 7 answers to the 7 most frequently asked questions if your loved one is critically ill in intensive care, 9 myths of being a critically ill patient in intensive care. Thank you for tuning into this week's blog, and I'll see you again in another update next week. Make sure you also check out your questions answered section, or send me an email to support@intensivecarehotline.com and I'll personally answer your email. This is Patrick Hutzel from intensivecarehotline.com, and I'll see you again next week with another update.